Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Safe Side, a monthly podcast hosted by the editors of Safety and Health magazine, the official magazine of the National Safety Council. This is Kevin Drewley, Associate Editor at Safety and Health. With me, as always, are my fellow Associate Editors, Barry Botino and Alan Ferguson. Hello, guys.
Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
We're thankful that you've joined us for this February 2026 episode, number 72 in our history. Hey, if you divide that by 12, you've got 6 years' worth of monthly podcasts. This month's episode is sponsored by the National Association of Safety Professionals. We know that many of you out there have had a unique journey into the safety profession, and we'd like to hear about it for the My Story feature in our magazine. You can submit a personal story or encourage a safety colleague to do the same by emailing us at safehealth@nsc.org. In this month's episode, we'll examine some highlights from the February issue of Safety and Health, and as we approach National Ladder Safety Month in March, discuss ladder safety with American Ladder Institute President Mike Van Bree. Finally, we'll share some stories you may have missed in What Else?, our monthly In Case You Missed It segment. Is everybody ready? Let's go.
Does your CEO get it when it comes to safety? This month, Safety and Health magazine will introduce you to 7 such leaders who do in our annual feature story on the CEOs who get it. Our 2026 honorees prove that culture is shaped by what leaders prioritize. These leaders provide clarity and purpose while also recognizing that safety requires an investment in people. These folks show that when organizations combine operational excellence with authentic human connection, safety becomes a shared promise. In addition, Alan has a feature story about a new National Safety Council guide focused on how small businesses can benefit from safety technology. Small businesses need support, according to NSC Senior Research Associate Kenna Stanley. And this report, called A Small Business Guide to Safety Technology, Practical Strategies for Beginners, Growing Teams, and First-Time Adopters, offers knowledge on adopting safety tech tools. Stanley says, quote, "We really wanted to get in there and arm them with the knowledge and the framework so that they can apply technologies in a really scalable, easy-to-understand way," unquote. This article also features a 5-step safety innovation journey roadmap for small businesses, along with questions that employers can ask of workers and of technology vendors. As always, you'll find lots more in the February issue of Safety and Health, so please check your mailbox or visit us online at safetyandhealthmagazine.com.
Safety leaders, this one's for you. The National Association of Safety Professionals is conducting its Certified Safety Manager course live on April 20th to 24th in San Antonio. This in-person instructor-led class is built for professionals who want practical leadership skills, proven strategies, and a nationally recognized credential. You'll walk away ready to lead stronger safety programs from day one. Seats are limited, so lock yours in now. Visit naspweb.com and search Certified Safety Manager in San Antonio.
National Ladder Safety Month is coming up in March, but ladder safety is always an important topic no matter what time of year. Joining us to talk about ladder safety is Mike Van Bree, president of the American Ladder Institute. Mike, thank you so much for joining us here on the Safe Side.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to talk a little bit about ladder safety. That's extremely important, as you might imagine, to our industry.
Our first question, typically, what are the most frequent safety issues when it comes to ladders?
That's an easy, quick question, but the answer can be a little winded. But I guess if I had to summarize it, I would say instability. So that instability depends on the type of ladder. If it's a leaning ladder, extension ladder or single ladder, a slide out would be the instability of most frequent safety concern. You can also have side slides. So then when it goes to a self-supporting ladder, a step ladder, the typical instability would be because of an improper setup, for example, where you're not on firm level ground and perhaps overreaching, applying excessive forces, those sorts of things that can lead to that instability. So stability is key when you're on a portable ladder as opposed to a fixed ladder that's attached to a structure. These portable ladders can become unstable if not used according to the instructions that are provided.
Mike, what are some ways that companies and safety professionals who are listening to our podcast can help prevent or mitigate these safety issues?
Super question. The safety professionals can impact ladder safety through that awareness of ladder safety. We often think of, I've got a couple of twin grandsons, and I watch how they climb around on things, and that sort of expectation that we all know how to climb a ladder. And that's true in terms of maybe putting one foot from step to step or rung to rung. But there's those finer points that really need to be highlighted. And safety professionals can really help mitigate those safety issues by training. So we are very firmly committed at the ALI to ladder safety training, and we've got lots and lots of resources in that regard at the American Ladder Institute website, as well as specific for National Ladder Safety Month, which we're in the midst of right now, is laddersafetymonth.com. So if you go to the websites, you can find all kinds of free available resources for training and educating users. And safety professionals are the ones that are in a great place to share that message.
Mike, how often should ladders be inspected and what should people look for during those inspections?
If you read the labels on the ladder, it's going to say inspect the ladder before use. And so anytime you are using a ladder, you want to inspect it. So ladders don't typically get to the job site automatically. They're transported. So in that transportation, damage can occur. And you want to make sure before you use that ladder, before you set it up, use it, you give it a good inspection. So checking the feet. I mentioned earlier about, for example, slide out accidents on leaning ladders. And so we clearly want to make sure we've got those slip resistant shoe pads in good condition, present, accounted for, and in good condition. Starts with the slide out on one level, but it also involves the structural integrity. So you want to make sure to examine all the components, the load-bearing members being the side rails of the ladder. Those would be like the beams of the bridge. That's what's carrying the load. The steps, the rungs. You want to make sure there aren't any broken steps or rungs or any attachments to the side rails that have been compromised. So the answer to the specific question is how often? Every time, because you don't know how the ladder has been altered since you last used it. So you definitely want to be attentive to that inspection step. So I'm glad you brought that up.
How can people best choose the right ladder for a job or task?
It really starts with the environment. Where are you using this ladder? Do you have an environment with a firm level surface where a self-supporting step ladder would be not at an angle, set up properly, and be able to access the work from the step ladder without overreaching? Or is it perhaps better to have a leaning ladder, a non-self-supporting extension ladder, for example, that gives you an ability to maybe get closer to your work? There are accessories as well. So making sure that if you have an unlevel surface like a slope or a stairway or those sorts of things, there are ladder levelers, for example, that allow you to extend one of the side rails down a bit to account for those unlevel surfaces. Shoes on leaning ladders, there are spike positions that allow you to spike the ladder shoe into a soft, penetrable surface, the soil, for example, to resist slide out. So making sure that the ladder you choose can fit the environment where you need to work. So situational awareness of the environment is critical, and then choosing the ladder accordingly. I didn't mention height. Obviously, it needs to be a tall enough ladder to reach the work safely. Those are the sorts of things that you want to make sure you understand to choose the ladder, you have to understand your environment and the task at hand to be sure that you're going to be able to access it safely. Because, again, going back to what I said earlier about instability, we don't want to have this use result in an instability.
Mike, as our audience knows, technology has become an even bigger part of safety day by day. And are there tools and technologies out there that can help improve ladder safety?
Absolutely. As an engineer, you might imagine that I can appreciate technology. I started out in the ladder industry back in 1993, so quite a while ago, and I can tell you that over that course of 30 plus years, there have been some technology advancements. That being said, I don't want to suggest that the ladders from earlier on are necessarily unsafe. If they have been inspected and maintained, they are safe products. They're being built to the safety standards that effectively exist today. There's been some minor adjustments over time in the safety standards, but by and large, the safety factor, the load factor, the durability, those are all things that have been well established for 50 years, over 50 years. In terms of the technology, though, what I was alluding to is, for example, about 10 years ago, ladder manufacturers began introducing step ladders that are leanable. Now, you may know, your audience may know, that historically, leaning a stepladder is a very bad idea from a safety perspective because there's certain hazards that come into play. So, what the manufacturers have done is account for those risks in the design. So, using the technology, making sure that you've added the utility of a step ladder that can also be used as a non-self-supporting leaning ladder. So that's one example that quickly comes to mind in terms of how the technology has changed or how things have been made more utilitarian. But like I say, an earlier step ladder that's not leanable is perfectly fine to use if that's going to work in your environment. So the advancements, I would say, have been primarily focused on helping to improve the utility. Ladders, like any tool, cost money and there's expense involved. So if we can, maybe for a little bit of an increase in cost, provide added utility when somebody wants that, needs that, that's where the market seems to have adapted over the years, is by adding those features, maybe including accessories with a design so that you have that greater utility without having to switch out ladders, for example.
Mike, thank you once again for joining us. We appreciate this insightful and fantastic discussion. For more information on National Ladder Safety Month, go to laddersafetymonth.com.
While we were all out and about buying flowers and candy for our sweethearts this month, there was a bouquet of safety and health news that crossed our desks here at Safety and Health magazine. That's why we bring you this latest installment of In Case You Missed It. And I'll get us started. And gentlemen, I wanted to share that there's a new report from the National Safety Council that will help employers reduce the safety risks of long COVID. And for this report, which is called Long COVID and Workplace Safety, and it's available on the NSC website, NSC interviewed 1,500 full-time workers between October 2024 and September 2025 about long COVID and its impacts on workplace safety. And what they found was that workers who experienced long COVID symptoms were more likely to both report a workplace injury that required medical attention or an injury that required time off. And what the report shared is 7 suggestions for employers, and those include implementing flexible work arrangements, introducing workplace modifications, and offering mental health support. And what the authors of the report said was understanding how these symptoms interact with job tasks and safety protocols is essential to mitigating risks and supporting affected workers. Alan, while we were recording this week, you had some breaking news cross your desk, and I know you want to share that with folks.
Yeah, in case you missed it, there was some really big news here recently, and that is NIOSH is attempting to bring back the workers that it laid off, or I should say the Department of Health and Human Services laid off. A number of employees, an unknown number, but it's estimated to be in the hundreds, received an email that stated that their reduction in force or RIF notifications are quote unquote hereby revoked. And again, the exact number of employees who received this email, which divisions would be affected, is unknown. Also, is obviously unknown is the number of employees who will come back to the agency after being away for months. And as I wrote, presumably many have moved on to other jobs. So this started in March when the Department of Health and Human Services, under which NIOSH is under the CDC and CDC is under HHS, they announced their plan to lay off more than 870 NIOSH employees. Some estimates had it between 900 to 1,000, and that included employees from the National Personal Protective Technology Library and the agency's minor safety and health branches. And the plan was to merge NIOSH and 4 other agencies into something called the Administration for a Healthy America. And those layoffs initially were expected to go into effect by June 30th. In May, though, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appeared before the House Appropriations Committee and told them that the department had already reinstated 328 NIOSH employees, including those from the Respirator Approval Program and the Co-Workers Health Surveillance Program. We don't really know the reason. I did try to ask people at HHS why they chose to bring employees back at that time. They didn't really answer. They kind of gave us just a boilerplate statement. So part of this allegedly is because of kind of lack of congressional backing, and also pending litigation. There is a case right now. It's called New York et al. V. Kennedy et al., and that's in the U.S. District Court for the District of Rhode Island. So, yeah, I mean, we should stay tuned. But again, this was very big news. Kevin, what about you?
I guess I'll sandwich this segment with another study. Barry just discussed one at the start, and that was very insightful on your end, and a lot of layers that you always expertly unpack. This one, though, I mentioned a few podcasts ago about National Bosses Day, but this one kind of called it to mind again. It was a collaborative study with 5 universities, 4 in the U.S. and 1 in China, and it delved into maybe the how and why that a supervisor or a boss might feel that some worker's suggestion that's a little bit not so much out there, but just different than the norm, that why they might feel threatened by those. It was very interesting. They described the methodology with which they used a questionnaire, but basically we're asking people whether they believe their voice was welcomed by their supervisor at work, and also we're getting input from supervisors, and really found that it didn't happen all the time, but often occurred that the supervisor's ego was kind of in play. There was a quote that was very telling in a press release from one of the co-authors, Stephen Courtwright, who's a management professor at Texas A&M, and basically just he said, quote, "The supervisor may engage in fight mode when they view that employee as a threat by isolating them, shutting them down, or undermining them," unquote, when they give that kind of suggestion. He continued to say that the supervisor might engage in quote unquote flight mode by disengaging or removing them from the conversation. But either way, it disempowers that individual, who had given that other suggestion. So they just said, throwing it out there, and said it didn't happen each time, but also had called supervisors to really maybe check their egos at the door and to really evaluate that this worker might have the group's interest really as their first priority, and are doing nothing more than trying to suggest something that can benefit the company and maybe just be a different way of doing things.
Well, if there's something that you think we missed here at Safety and Health, let us know. Email us at safehealth@nsc.org, and check out news from around the safety world at our website, safetyandhealthmagazine.com.
Thank you so much for joining us for this month's episode of On the Safe Side. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of it with us, wherever you choose to listen. You can check out our past episodes by going to safetyandhealthmagazine.com/podcast. That includes episode 36 from February 2023, when we also discussed ladder safety, as well as staying safe during cold weather. The original music for this podcast was composed by Steve Maslin. Thank you so much, Steve. As always, we thank our NSC teammates behind the scene who make this podcast go. And a special thank you goes out to this month's sponsor, the National Association of Safety Professionals. We'll be back next month to have more safety-related discussions, talk to trusted voices from around the profession, and hopefully make you smile a little. In the meantime, please stay on the safe side.